saying we have to send troops into Ukraine, we're ready. Once the statements are made from the EU, you had, I think it was the German defense minister who came out and said, well, the EU doesn't have a mandate to send troops. The Americans won't provide the backstop. And even if all of this would work, we don't really have the troops. So how do you make sense of what Europeans are doing at this moment? Is this, well, it doesn't seem very authentic, or it doesn't seem very likely that they could carry through any of the things they're threatening with. But meanwhile, they're sucking out all the oxygen in the room in terms of being able to present an actual favorable settlement, something that actually addresses the security concern of the opponent as well, and something that could address the root causes which Russia keeps addressing. But if they do know that things will be much worse tomorrow than they are today, how do you make sense of any of this? Because I often make the point, I understand the Russians, they see this as an existential threat. I understand the Ukrainians, they can lose their nation over this. I can understand the Americans wanting to get some distance from this, but I can't, I have a very hard time understanding the European position now.
Well, I've looked at it over and over again, and I can only come up with one logical answer. And that is that the European political and economic elite have been operating under the umbrella of American protection and American security guarantees and American economic backup for decades now. And they cannot exist without the United States backing them up. They know no other mode. They're incapable of acting as a sovereign entity, with genuine independence. So when you have politicians who came into political maturity, operating under certain assumptions that had been true for decades, when these assumptions are no longer viable, such as the guarantee that America will always back you up. I mean, look, from the European standpoint, you and I can scratch our head and say, what are they doing? They're buying time. Why? Well, they had to buy time once before. Remember, this isn't Donald Trump's first rodeo. It's his second. And his first rodeo, Europe, working with the American establishment, ran the clock out on Trump and prevented Trump from doing any permanent, lasting damage. Then Biden came in, and Biden gave Europe everything they wanted except final closure, but he got the Europeans to commit to this Ukrainian conflict put both feet in. I mean, he got the Germans to allow him to blow up a pipeline and destroy their economy. He got them to, buy American gas at 3-4 times, the price. And Europe seemed to be happy about this because it's not about the well-being of Europe. It's about the viability and sustainability of European political and economic elites. This is the environment in which they can survive. And so what they're doing now is they're confronted with Donald Trump again, changing the game. They're opting not to change the game, to ride the clock out, to wait Donald Trump out. And they don't have to wait till the end of his term. They have to wait until midterm elections. You see, if the Democrats, if the opposition can take control of at least one house of the Congress, Trump is now paralyzed. And then the Europeans just have to play the waiting game, and they'll kill as many Ukrainians as possible as part of this waiting game. But that's what their plan is right now. They think they can wait Trump out. They think that they can continue to stick to a hardline position that, is more fantasy than fact. And they also know that if they deviate from this, should they become reality-based, their political future is over. Because then, why did they do what they did? Why did they destroy their respective nations? Why did they destroy the concept of European unity? Why did they destroy NATO? Why did they kill so many Ukrainians? There won't be any tolerance for these leaders, and they'll be thrown out. And for a politician, that's the kiss of death. You become a politician because you want fame, fortune, and everything that goes with it. You don't become a politician to resign honorably and go off gently into that good night. But these people wouldn't go off gently into that good night. There's probably criminal charges that could be brought to bear, political retribution. They're fighting for their existential lives. So this is an existential struggle for Europe, for the European political and economic elite. Should they do the right thing and try to save lives and promote peace, it's over for them politically. And for a politician, that's the kiss of death.
Yeah, that's always a good question. What happens after this proxy war is over? Because a lot of political capital has been invested in this, a lot of money, a lot of weapons. It's very difficult to imagine going back to the way things were. But meanwhile, on the other side of this, the Russians, they don't seem to be looking to wait out Europe and the US in this in terms of hoping to restore relations later. Instead, they seem to be moving on kind of quickly to reorient their economy to the east. I assume you've also been paying attention to what has been happening in China with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting. How significant do you think this is in terms of shaping the new world, to a large extent influenced by the Ukraine war as well?
Well, it's interesting. I often write on issues pertaining to energy security. And I remember a couple of years ago when China and Russia floated the idea of this kind of massive energy deal. I said, this is game, set, match. It's over for Europe. Once Russia gets locked into China, they don't need Europe. And, Europe doesn't bring Russia anything. And I remember all of the my European counterparts and American counterparts. No, Russia will never, this is just on paper. This deal will never be closed. The conditions can never be met. Russia will never walk away from Europe. And I said, well, yeah, they will. I mean, because the West will continue on the current policy trajectory that inevitably results in the necessity of Russia and China concluding this relationship. Well, we're here. It happened. It's over. I mean, I don't know what Europe thinks is going to happen, but the day of Europe having access to, Russia's energy reserves to be the cheap energy for Europe, it's over. Russia's now committed to providing this resource to China, and this means that China's economy now is secure from, any Western energy intervention. They don't need to worry about, strategic shipping lanes and things of this nature. They have a pipeline coming straight across. And hey, how'd you like to be Mongolia? Because what a deal. Your pipeline goes across your territory and you just are making billions of dollars of free money. Money Ukraine used to make, being a transit for energy. This is very troublesome for Europe because, ironically, what's going to happen is that this Russian gas is going to go to China, and China's going to load it up on giant LNG ships, and they're going to transit them all the way around the world to Europe, who's going to buy them at 5 times the rate that China purchases that. That's the end of the journey of the European economy. So, this is a very big deal, and it's not just this one deal, though. Basically it's Russia, China, and now India coming together to create a sanction-proof economic reality. The dollar is the global reserve currency. Its days are numbered now. Donald Trump really, truly blew it. And we're getting to the point of no return, meaning that once China, India, and Russia, head far enough down the path of independence from the dollar, they're not going to go back. I mean, even if the United States today said, hey, all restrictions on dollar usage is finished. You can use the dollar any way you want to. No banking restrictions. Just use the dollar, please. I think the Chinese, the Russians would definitely say, no, thanks. We're because we understand what you have the potential of doing, and we're going to make sure you never again have that potential of strangling our respective economies. And I would imagine that India might jump on board too, because, this was not a well thought out policy to hit India with these energy tariffs for the so-called crime of buying Russian energy. So Donald Trump is I'm not an economist, but reading what people are saying about the bond market and, rising interest rates. And, we are looking at the collapse of the economic system that held the rules-based international order together for decades. And, what's going to replace it? It's a fair question.